Thank you for joining us, everyone, including our panelists today. Like you said, my name is Courtney. I'm a second year in the 2-year full-time MBA program. Prior to Sloan, I worked in education technology, most recently at McGraw-Hill, where I worked on product development. And while here at Sloan, I was able to spend the summer as a chief of staff intern at a startup that focuses on health education, funded hugely through MIT's Social Impact Fund. So happy to talk about funding opportunities for those who are coming from underfunded backgrounds. And just a little bit about my life at Sloan. I'm an active part of FLY, which is our first generation club. I'm co-president this year. I'm also co-president of Education Club. I'm heavily involved in Pride. I do a club sport, and I'm doing the business analytics certificate. So lots of things you can do here at Sloan, covering a wide variety of interests. And I'd love to pass it off to our panelists to do introductions, name what program you did and when you graduated, and maybe what you were doing before Sloan and now what you're doing after. And I see Candace, you're first on my screen, so I'm going to bump it to you first.
Sure. Hi, my name is Candace Hines. I was an SF MBA, so I did the Sloan Fellows program, graduated last year in May of 23, prior to coming to the Sloan Fellows program. I was in healthcare operations, so I did start my career as a lawyer and in the legal field, mostly family law. I am now working for a PE-backed dermatology and plastic surgery roll-up. I'm a VP and the head of plastics operations. I'm originally from Texas. I'm from rural Texas. I'm a first gen on both sides of my family to go to college. And yeah, happy to be here.
Great. We can go down the line. Daniel, if you want to go next.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel. I am an LGO 23, so I graduated last year. And LGO means the double masters in engineering, where I did electrical engineering, computer science, and I got my MBA simultaneously at the same time. So I was also an MBA 23 at the same time. Yeah, before LGO, I was doing software engineering at Capital One. And now I'm doing product management at Meta. So just all been in the tech field, either building code or doing Jira tickets to sort of write code. Always been around it. I've loved that my whole time. And during LGO, I did a lot of tech related things. And yeah, my relationship with FLI, I'm originally from London, but my parents were from a low income background. They were immigrants from Ethiopia. And so I've been a big beneficiary of, any income support when it comes to education. And it's always been a big priority of me and my family. So yeah, that's me.
And I think I'm the next in line. Hi, everyone. My name is Elisa. I am a Master of Finance graduate, also from the 23 program, so graduated last year. Prior to that, I worked in banking back in Europe. I'm originally from Germany, and then found my way to the US 3 years ago with this master's program. Similar to Daniel, I've been benefited a lot from anything like from scholarships and low-income support back in Germany. My parents were both musicians, so there was a background heavily in that music domain and nothing much more beyond that. So that's why things have been very different for me. And I was able to follow two passions at MIT. I did finance, but I also have a huge passion for cybersecurity, which led to my current role. I am right now a risk analyst at McKinsey. More specifically, I'm working in the cyber practice, supporting or advising companies in their cyber risk posture. And yeah, that's so far about me. And I'm passing over to Olga.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olga Timirgalieva, MBA grad from a couple of years ago, from 2021. Prior to Sloan, so I was originally from Uzbekistan, and then prior to Sloan, lived in Florida, worked in metals industry, and in parallel to that, have been a reservist in U.S. Coast Guard now 13 years. So have enjoyed that actually in cyber. So similar theme there to Elisa. And now I am at BCG as a project leader in our principal investors private equity practice. Excited to meet everyone.
Amazing. Thank you all. Such a great breadth of experience tonight. So for our first question, I'll lead into it by saying, I know like many of you, my parents were really encouraging me to pursue as much higher education as possible, but had absolutely no idea what business school was. So I really came into picking where to go without familial input. Most of them said, why are you pursuing even more? So I would love to hear about why some of you actually chose Sloan and why you found that this was the best fit for you and kind of what decisions or what factors went into that decision.
I'm happy to talk about it a little bit. I had a similar experience. So I had a first graduate degree, and I had the same experience where my parents didn't quite know what graduate school really meant and what it entailed, where law school even fit into the college experience. And so I had to sort of navigate that on my own. So whenever I did the SF program, which is mid-career, which I did at 42. So by then my parents were familiarized with what grad school looked like, but they had the same reaction of, why do you want another degree? And I did, and I chose Sloan in particular because it was so mission-based. And I would say that, if anything, it felt like my background and a diversity of background was seen as an advantage and something that I was bringing to the school. And from everyone that I spoke with during the admissions process prior to other students, it really felt like that was an asset to me, and I was bringing a color that maybe was underrepresented at the school. And I was very grateful to be able to have that valued.
Yeah, for me, Sloan was, or I guess it's more the MIT brand. I think that was the big allure for me. Yeah, I had like African parents, and they like, adorned, the MIT name in every regard, but like they had no idea what business school was. And so I think a lot of it was like me working out what I wanted to do in my life, and also more importantly, what kind of community I wanted to keep around me. I think one thing that I learned from going to Sloan and doing LGO, which is the double masters, is the community people you keep tend to be like quite nerdy, a little bit international, passionate about like the most random things. Like it's like something tech. And like that's the community I wanted to keep around me, and that's the people I wanted to become. And so Sloan just kind of like checked all those boxes compared to other schools. And yeah, I'd like to say that I, contributed to that community, as well as, attained a lot of value from those communities. So yeah, that's why I chose Sloan.
And I wanted to add to that, to Danielle's comment on community. I think in visiting different schools and through the kind of the process of selection, for me, Sloan stood out because it seemed like it had the most like just down to earth people who were like Danielle said, like passionate about something, like coming from all kinds of different diverse backgrounds, but that like down to earthness was really appealing aspect for me, because I'm sure, as we're on the fly panel, right? So sometimes we get imposter syndrome, right? Probably familiar feelings, and being able to like feel like you can fit in and just be yourself was really, really a big deal. So when I walked into Sloan, I talked to, prospective Sloanies, and I talked to Sloanies who were already there. I felt like, okay, like cool. I don't have to, try to put on many layers of trying to be somebody who I'm not. I can just be myself, because I see all kinds of people here, and everybody just seems like really nice, kind, and interesting.
I can only agree to what was said already. That hits the nail really. What made me choose Sloan was actually because I went there already for a semester abroad, and I basically came back to the campus, and I chose this because I was like, for the first time, like seen as who I am with all the interests I bring to the campus. And I was able to find for every corner, in a niche, there's something you can go to. And you can't really tell from where somebody's coming from, because this nerdiness brings in like the DNA of MIT is like what kind of interest and how much curiosity you bring with it, and not much more. It's really basically who you are, and you can really bring your full self to the campus. Yeah.
Absolutely. So much of that resonates with how we all feel here today. And I love that so many of you brought up community. You're actually beating me to the punch a little bit. That was my next series of questions. I know that one of the things I think that is so beautiful about the Fly community, both in Sloan and out, is that it really is a focus on lifting each other up. I know that when I talk about my educational attainment, it's not a one-person show. I'm here because of so many people who came before me and supported me. So I would love to hear about any additional information you have about what communities you were part of at Sloan and how you got involved in the Sloan community, and especially if you have any examples on how those communities supported you, because this is a pretty intense experience regardless of the program you participate in.
I can jump in on that one to open us up. I am really, really happy to be on this panel right now, because 3 years ago, so about 2020, was myself and 2 other Sloanies. We founded Fly at Sloan, and I remember the process, and I remember the excitement, and kind of coming back to this kind of point of community. I remember it was like small, very, very small group of us. There was maybe 6 or 7 people coming, doing Ask Me Anything on socioeconomics, and that's kind of how we found each other initially and connected. And then myself and 2 other Sloanies, like, what we're missing this community and official student club. And the amount of support, just completely outpouring support, both from the school administration and like our classmates that we saw immediately, was just amazing. So, coming back to the point of like fitting in and involvement, and being able to have people like you, but also allies who want to listen to your story, want to be able to support you, want to be able to relate to you and like elevate your voice. It was a really, really awesome experience in that way. So it's kind of coming full circle being on this panel. So it's pretty great.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on the outpouring of support. I think one big community that got to me, I guess 2 big communities that supported me, and I guess this panel's for prospective applicants, but like before I joined Sloan, was the Blacks in Business Students Association. They reached out to me before, like 6 months before I got the offer, and then like the day after they reached out. So they like already had assigned me like a mentor, someone to like support me through the transition process, to give me advice on housing. So like, yeah, I think Sloan is not short on support, if let's put it like that. And the second group is the LGO group. I can confidently say I wouldn't have graduated without the support of LGOs, just because of like the workload is like so high. And so yeah, I find that like the communities that supported me during Sloan were just like it was something I hadn't found before, even in college, and even to a degree at work now. It's like it's definitely very unique to the school, and something I like love with all my heart.
I would also add one thing that is it stays also after you graduate. So I'm amazed by how many people reply that I'm texting from the alumni network. So now as an alumni, like I'm reaching out to people across generations that have been at MIT a decade ago, but they share the same values. So very interested in the younger generation as well. So I think that's also one advice I can give to anyone. Like it's not only when you're studying or are at grad school, but it continues to be in your back pocket whenever you need it in your career.
I would add that the best and greatest community that I got out of the experience was my own cohort. So the SF program is about 110 or so people. We have a WhatsApp chat that is literally all 108 of us that graduated from the program. Still, we're very much in touch with each other. We travel to see each other, and as Eliza was saying, we draw on each other for advice and resources still, and probably will for a very long time. But getting to know those people was one of the best experiences of my life. So your cohort and your classmates are going to continually surprise you in how amazing they are, but also how down to earth and supportive and relatable. There's a lot of adversity, and MIT does a really good job. Sloan does a really good job of giving you the opportunity to showcase your background so that you aren't compelled to just keep it to yourself. You actually share it with people, and then it makes relating to each other and bonding with each other easy. And of course, it's a really great group of people.
Absolutely. Sloan does a really great job of helping us find either smaller cohorts or smaller groups so we can really get to know each other, even though Sloan encompasses all of these programs and really does encourage us to show up as our full selves, which I think is really special. And I want to dig into a little bit about how you all actually engage with your alumni network. So Lisa, kind of building on something that you said, how you engaged alumni while you were here and after, and how you found, community and advancement through engaging with the Sloan alumni network.
I mean, I can go first, given that I just mentioned that, and it's currently a big part of my life because I'm considering like constantly where to drive my career. And when you're at grad school, you're most exposed to your cohort and maybe the above and then the next ones. But it is, as I said, like it's like you find across generations a lot of people to reach out to. So I don't know exactly how I use it. There's something to say about like the background you bring in. Maybe you have to find more advice than others that come from a high income family because there's some sort of compass missing. I don't know how to describe it, but sometimes you feel like there's a corrective missing, or like a clear path is sometimes not so simple because nobody else have told you how to do it. There's also a lot of advantage because you can do it by yourself and nobody's telling you what to do because your parents maybe don't even know what a business school is. On the other hand, you might get lost easily. So I think the alumni network is very helpful to give you some sort of like feedback, or like if something resonates with your interests or not. And you'll find for sure people that do something you're excited about, can reach out to them. That's how I do it. And I'm surprised like how many people are like happy to share how their journey was. And yeah, can really recommend that.
For me, I can speak maybe to the post-graduation experience. It feels like the community doesn't stop. So I'm in New York, which is one of the bigger sort of hubs that sends a lot of Sloanies out. And it feels like there is like a massive community of people here. Like, someone's holding a housewarming on Saturday. I just came back from a wedding of a Sloanie. It's like, it's a community that just like never stops. And so it supports me, both socially and like emotionally to this day. And then, within Sloan, it was an amazing experience to feel like, like Eliza said, it's like you feel like you have a support network to give you advice when you don't know what to do next. And I think like during the recruiting season, that's like especially pertinent when you want to know like, okay, how do I pursue this really niche startup that I've never heard about before? But then there's a Sloanie there that knows someone that knows someone. And so there's always that connection that helps you, recruit, but also, let loose a little bit on the weekends.
I had a lot of success with the career development office. It's got a great platform that will help pair you with somebody who is either in the field or has experience that you're looking for. They actually avail themselves, they put themselves out on this platform to accept meetings with you. So that is something that's available to you, which is phenomenal. And even if it's just like, hey, I'm thinking about a startup or I'm thinking about a career switch or something like that, they're there to just bounce some ideas off, which is really great. But I also actually use LinkedIn constantly and I pull up other Sloanies. And I've had a 100% success rate in reaching out to other Sloanies and asking if I could, just tap their network or talk to them a little bit. And everybody replies.
Yeah, similarly on my side during Sloan, the actual MBA program, it was really helpful for recruiting purposes and just kind of getting advice, getting mentorship, which a lot of the times a piece that we really need, right? Because like Elisa mentioned, we're not really going back to our families to ask for advice and might not have as big of a network to lean onto. So getting access to this huge and amazing Sloan network is a big benefit. And then post graduation, as I start working here at BCG, and I'm in Boston office, so there's a lot of Sloanies around, and it's been pretty awesome because even on my day one, right at work here, you walk into the room and you see a bunch of Sloanies and familiar faces, whether they're your year Sloanies or prior year, and that has been also really awesome as a source of support, also source of mentorship in my career.
Fantastic. And so kind of winding back to your time here on campus, were there specific resources that you found were really helpful for you as a first-gen or low-income student, or any specific resources, initiatives, or programs that you would recommend for other students coming in with a similar background?
Well, one big one for me, I mentioned income support before. This is, I guess, very specific to the LGO program, but they offer a wide range of fellowships for people who sort of can't afford tuition. And I'm like one of the biggest beneficiaries of that. Like, without a doubt, I couldn't have attended business school, any kind of grad school without it. And so it very much unlocked the ability to sort of not have to stress about tuition costs and sort of immerse myself in the full Sloan experience. Because I'm like, I was one of those people, like I couldn't go to my parents, like they can't afford it. So like, you know, so it's nice to feel like I feel supported from the LGO program through the fellowship. And I think this extends to MIT's Sloan MBA program too, where they have a wide range of fellowships too. So yeah, income support for me was like my biggest unblocker when it comes to attending Sloan. And I felt very supported from the program then.
I would iterate what Candice was saying about the career development office. I engaged with them quite early, and I'm still in contact with my responsible person. She's just checking in every couple of months how I'm going, and I think this is one of the greatest resources that stays beyond graduation.
The program office was really helpful to me, but also most of my cohort mates were parents. They had children, and so moving your entire family across the world, finding a place to live that is affordable, they really tapped the resources of the program office to help guide them through. So it wasn't just necessarily a moving here, it's all a new country and a lot of things for them to have to navigate, and Boston's a busy place, and there were a lot of resources that they can help you. So I would get the advice from your program office as well.
All great advice. And I'll just add a couple cents as someone who's kind of on the ground now. I've been really impressed by how many paid opportunities there are also around Sloan during the semester. I know pretty much everyone I know is a TA and a research assistant. There's in-semester internships. There's been a number of opportunities for ways to kind of get money to help you get through this semester, as well as I think Sloan has a culture where we don't want anyone to feel excluded. So there are also a number of events that are not financially intensive. And like I said earlier, there's the social impact fund. So if you want to pursue something social impact related over the summer, there's a stipend you can apply for to help pad that. So it means that, students who aren't coming into Sloan with a huge number of savings are excluded from kind of pursuing those opportunities that aren't able to pay you as much. So there are a couple of different things around campus to help us feel a little bit more like we're not inhibited by the background. And we got a question in from the audience that I really loved. And it's, as a first generation college graduate or low income member of the Sloan community, how do you balance the drive to push your limits and break new barriers while taking the time to celebrate and acknowledge your victories and achievements? I know it's a big
that
question.
everyone is smiling because we're all probably reflecting and thinking of that it's a difficult thing to do. For me, I can definitely speak for myself. It's an ongoing striking of a balance and the reminders to myself to quote stop and smell the roses, right? And enjoy. I have a 1.5-year-old daughter now, and she's definitely helping kind of bring that balance and pull me more into the enjoying the small, happy moments on as you plan your life and your achievements and your next steps, to be able to kind of pause, reflect on everything that you've done and how far we've come. And I know all of us on the panel and folks, in the all participants listening in, I'm sure the path for any low income first gen student is a typically pretty long, right? And there's a lot of challenges to overcome. So I think it's probably a well-deserved pause for most of us to look back and just appreciate how far we've come and what we've done and the grit and resilience that it's taken.
I don't think I balance it well, to be honest. I think like very candidly, I think it's very easy to get caught up when your career trajectory, your money, your life stones, your dydx is not positive. Like when that gradient is not positive, you can get very much caught up in that and feel like you're not, pushing your limits, you're not breaking barriers. And so, I think the times when I do double check myself and try to be a bit more optimistic and acknowledge like where I've succeeded is like when I speak to like my family who are still like, they're still like so like the same. They're like consistent throughout my whole life. It's like a good data to compare how you are now versus like how you were in the past. And I think when they like, especially my dad, like when my dad's like, oh, like you could try this, you could try that, or you've changed XYZ, like it's like a very good reference point for me. And yeah, I think it's a good way for me to slow down. So it's like the community I keep around me, I think allows me to sort of see where I am and how I'm feeling. But I don't think I balance it well. Like I think that's like the truth.
I'm also not sure if I balance it well on this question. Really, it's a really good one. I mean, also, if you think about like there's certain selection bias going on, the fact coming from a low income family to already be here, that are the ones per definition that are driven towards reaching something very far out. So that makes us all very driven. And I like Daniel's point of like finding a reference point that humbles you down. And that can be, in my case, like the oldest friendships I have, like the people that know me well, remind me that maybe the starting conditions have been different. And my fear was always like it goes up and then when is it going down? But you reach that step where you are at grad school. So it's a plateau. And that's something I tell myself. So it can go up, but it can't go down anymore. Because I bring that fear with it, because growing up, like having financial concerns is something that is raising much more than for others. Like others are, I want to get from rich to richer, but I'm like, okay, I don't want to go back. So that's something that I tell myself. So it's getting always better. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's going to be drinking through a fire hose while you're there, and in a good way, because there are so many things to do and there's so many opportunities. You can spread yourself a little bit thin between the opportunities too, and maybe diffuse your impact on anyone. So you have to be judicious and you have to be strategic, and going in, try to have a plan on what you want or what you want to get specifically out of your experience at Sloan. And you can help strategize around that by talking to people, and talking to us and messaging us and talking with the program office and things like that. But to the original point, how do you balance the two things? You can still be really involved because there are a lot of special and fun activities that the program office and that MIT does in general that allows you to be connected. You're still there, you're still hanging out with so on a level, you're still networking, but you're actually taking some time away and doing something fun and, going to one of the many activities that they set up for you. So take advantage of those because it gives you a breather. You get to step away, but you still get to be around people whom you're really going to like. It's very family friendly. In my experience, it was very family friendly. And so, you know, if you are traveling with a family or bringing your family, then a lot of times there's activities for the kids too.
Absolutely. SOs, partners, kids, dogs, the whole family are welcome at almost every Sloan event. And so kind of jumping off of what you said about how it's like drinking from a fire hose, are there any other things that you wish you had known about Sloan before you started here?
God, everybody gave me the proper admonishments. Everybody was like, yeah, it's going to be too much. It's a kid in a candy store kind of a thing. That's really true. I wish I understood it fully. And if I could take a second pass at it, I probably would, and I would do things a little bit differently. But I would actually spend more time with my cohort, and I would get to know even more people, and I would cross over a little bit more to the MFins and the LGO students, and really get to know people in this course and others.
I think one thing I would do different is maybe frame my experience differently. I think I came in with the mindset that like, I'm here to career pivot, I'm here to make friends, and that's it. Like I didn't like, that was like my one track mind goal. But like in hindsight, I think the way I would frame it now is it's a low risk way of trying out a bunch of things that you like can do literally anything. It's, you mentioned, I think Courtney mentioned like the social impact fund, but like one thing I regret is like not coming in being like, maybe I could do a startup, maybe I could, you know, leverage the fact that MIT gives you a bunch of free money to, you know, start whatever like nonsense business you want. Maybe not nonsense, but like any kind of business you want. And so I think if I had come in with that mindset, I think I would have been a bit more exploratory and like similar to what Candace said, like that could mean meeting people outside your program. It could mean a bunch of different things, but like not being too like goals focused, but rather being like path and journey focused. Yeah.
I agree a lot with what you guys saying, and maybe to add, like, think about the timing of things. Like if you have a 1-year program or 2 years program or whatever, like think about like zoom out quickly. That is what I would have told myself, like zoom out quickly with your interest, go into everything, and then there's something about like repetition. Like if you find something, then stick with it and explore it more and more. I think one of the mistakes I was doing is like I come in and I was like, okay, I'm open to different things, but I lost myself also because I was trying like every day you have the decision of like 10 events or like something is going on. So have a mind, like have an idea of how you make decisions. Do you want to try every day something new, or do you want to stick with something you liked in the beginning and try to build a network around it? And engage early with the alumni network. That is something I learned after this. I should have done this much earlier, strategically. So if you go out of that school, you have an idea of like who's your network on the street, because it's very different when you're not anymore on this very nicely sympathetic MIT Sloan umbrella, which you take it with it, but the world is sometimes not so nice. You want to know your people.
Yeah, I'll echo Candace's point earlier on the relationships and getting to know your cohort, getting to know folks in other cohorts. I think meeting more people and then building relationships with them and getting to know them beyond the first initial conversation. There's like the same kind of template of conversation typically happens, right? At Sloan, you meet a new person. Hey, what did you do before? What are you doing now? What are you planning to do? Like actually kind of digging a little bit deeper to understand and learn this person. I've done some of it. I was in doing my 2-year MBA during COVID, so it was a little bit of a hiccup in our ability to do it well, but that is like the best, I think, advice and the best way to really, I think, in my opinion, to get the most out of the time at Sloan is meeting people and really building those relationships, because the people are the classmates that you have are pretty amazing, and you will keep those relationships after you graduate.
Absolutely. Great points. And I'm pulling from the chat now. We have a number of really great questions. So an anonymous attendee, I really appreciated Olga's comment about fit and being myself. At the same time, I know schools that try to support fly students like us aren't perfect. Could you be as candid as possible and tell us about some of the more difficult moments when you were like, oh, I don't fit in as much as the other students from non-fly backgrounds? How did you navigate that?
I think for me, one experience tended to be like around like trips and money. I think there are some students who are able to just do every single trip and they can afford it, and I definitely couldn't do that. And so, I mean, there was two ways I tried to navigate it. Was like one was, trying to, find, fun times or like other things that got rid of that FOMO locally, something that I could afford. And the second one was like plan the trips myself and contribute to those communities so that I'm the one who's aware of the fact that it's now cost prohibitive. And so those are my strategies for doing it, but again, it's not perfect.
Yeah, for me, some of the moments where I felt like I didn't fit in, and it's the conversations that sometimes you can't relate to, right? Like, hey, oh, my parents have a house in is it Hamptons? Right, or a lot of the hobbies that, I didn't know how to ski. I ended up learning later on, and got peer pressured at Sloan, which I don't regret. But I think it's some of those times where you're just kind of, you're part of the conversation, but you can't really relate. You can't really add anything because everybody seems to connect on that topic, but you just don't have any experience, and you feel a little bit, awkward, just kind of like nodding or trying to stay positive about it. But you feel like you don't belong in that part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think for me, yeah, that definitely occurs. And I had similar experience where everybody was going to Davos, just going to Davos. And not everybody could, and so you feel it yourself or you feel it on behalf of others. But I'm, like I said, I'm from rural Texas. My parents were laborers, and so sort of um the pedigree or the fine tuning, I didn't always felt like I had or exuded the way that some students did. And so I felt like even in my 40s, like I stuck out like a sore thumb. I would say if you feel that way, own it. I would say two things: just own it. There's something great about being your authentic self. And if you don't have experience with something or a certain situation, you'll probably find that other people haven't as well. But also, again, it was just such a supportive, friendly group of people that somebody always felt it felt like somebody was taking me under their wing. But you can also, the second thing I would say is like, you can also find a mentor whom you can be very candid with and say, like, this is sort of my background. I really feel uncomfortable in these situations. And try to find a mentor who maybe has a similar background or can relate in some way, who can help guide you through that, or at least talk you up. Because like I said, when I first started, this is actually a strength of yours. You're coming from a different background with a different viewpoint. And that diversity of thinking is so valuable in the school and in the business world and in an innovation environment. So please always just think of it as an asset.
And we have maybe second to last question, but I've seen a couple questions in the chat about balancing kind of going from being a full-time employee, and especially when you have family who relies on you, either kids or parents. How have you navigated the transition from, being able to play that role in your family to kind of still bearing that stress, either material or emotional, while here at Sloan?
Courtney, would you give the question one more time?
Yeah, so the question was about how did you manage going from kind of being a full-time employee, kind of bringing money in and having either kids or parents or other family members who rely on you financially? How did you transition from that to being at Sloan, where many of us don't have income anymore and we're still worried about financially supporting our family? Also a big question. We can also switch to a different one as well. I'll just briefly touch on, I have family who financially relies on me a bit, and that's when I really pulled in other parts of my community, extended relatives, siblings, other people to help bear that weight and taking advantage of some of the opportunities to make money while here to supplement, but also, having the hard conversations of saying my ability to support the family is changing right now. And it might not be forever, but finding, it's different for everyone, finding ways to balance that. And then there are ways, if you have children, to navigate that here with our subsidized childcare as well. But other question is maybe our last wrap up. What advice do you have for first generation students applying? Maybe like a one sentence, kind of your one word of wisdom to leave with.
I can go first. I think words of wisdom. I would agree with what Candice is saying. See it as an advantage that you can do your own path. There are no predefined paths. You have to own it and see your asset, and you should, like, don't disappear. Just go with it and find your own way. And yeah, so I think I leave it there.
I'll actually piggyback on what Daniel said, and maybe this is a little bit less philosophical, a little bit more tactical. Take advantage of resources like Sandbox. It's free money for a potential startup and an incredible way to gain mentorship. Because I know and several other people, like we don't have familial connections that are going to connect us with money reserves to help support an idea that we have. But something like Sandbox can actually teach you how to make those connections, and in that way kind of change your life forever. It was an incredible experience for me and some of my friends who have gone on to Delta V and whatnot. Also, be yourself.
I would say tell your story and be proud of it. And then don't be afraid to ask for help. Ask anybody and everybody for help, information, anything, and then pay it forward to others.
Yeah, I don't think I can sum up all that advice still in one word. Yeah, just echoing what everyone else has said. And I guess given that this panel's for prospective applicants, I think it would be like leverage your identity, whether that's being like seeing it as a superpower to tell your story, or like using it as a superpower, using it as a way to connect with other FLI or even other people in general to like connect and like educate people about what FLI means. And so, yeah, that's my advice. Like, leverage your identity as your superpower.